This is called America's Greatest Threat Comes From Within. I'm a husband, father, son, uncle, and grandson. Above all, I am a leader, soldier, teacher, role model, and citizen. There are times when I feel compelled to speak, because to sit in silence without saying something goes against the moral fiber of my very being. Whether folks realize it or not, the world and our children are watching, and it truly concerns me about the lessons we are teaching and the messages we are sending. Citizens are forever screaming about the terrorist outside of our borders and the threat that lays in wait to destroy our nation. I can appreciate their concern and the fact that we must fight extremism before it makes it here. However, I'm about to tell you about our nation's greatest threat. Our nation's greatest threat does not come from abroad. Our nation's greatest threat lies within our own borders and is housed within the minds and hearts of many of our citizens. Sadly, there are a large number of our citizens who are living with irrational and illogical fear in their hearts and minds as the result of buying into the media's lies about a false flag event that got us into war. As a result, many people have developed a deep hatred and intolerance for those who practice the Islamic faith. Many people have a problem with people of Islamic faith practicing their religion within the United States of America. This upsets me deeply because it reminds me of Nazi Germany. The media of that time warped the minds of many Germans through false flag events and convinced them that there was a clear and present enemy that was the Jewish people. This irrational fear and hatred culminated in the Holocaust, an event that resulted in the tragic deaths of millions of innocent men, women, and children. This mindset led to a feeling of superiority and war for people that were hell-bent on world domination led by a tyrant named Adolf Hitler. It upsets me that I have to give a history lesson to people who should already know this information. But when I see it occurring, I feel compelled to say something. At the end of World War II, the world said never again. But now I'm not so sure. I see and hear a lot of people who possess and display the same Nazi mindset. Their fear and hatred is fueled by the media. They believe all Muslims are terrorists, and they go off of hearsay about a religion that they have never even studied. They focus on the portions of the Quran that are hateful and decide that the entire book is hateful. Many people worry about Sharia law happening in America. For those who do not know what Sharia law is, it's a set of moral laws and codes contained in the Quran, and it's very similar to the laws and the codes held in the Old Testament. Sharia law will not be implemented within our borders any more than Old Testament law will be exercised, because both call for the subjugation and intolerance of others and display a high level of misogyny. The greater portion of Americans who share everything negative, hate-riddled banter, and videos that feed their fears are Old Testament practicing individuals. This is not stereotyping. It can be confirmed through the way these individuals present their arguments. They hate everything that isn't like them and have a zero tolerance for others who don't fit into their Old Testament law. People of Islamic faith are bound by the Quran to follow the laws of the hosts and those in charge. As it says in the Quran 4:59, "O you believe, obey God and obey the messenger and also those in charge among you." Those in charge does not extend to imams. An imam is a preacher of the Islamic faith. People focus on the hateful presentation of certain imams and turn a blind eye towards certain preachers who spew the same type of hateful rhetoric. In fact, they embrace the hatred. No proper preacher would preach about hatred, division, and a whole laundry list of negativity. Good preachers lift their congregations up, and they try to create an environment of love that only makes sense based on the New Testament and the record of Jesus' words and actions. There are entirely too many Americans living in fear and waiting for the other shoe to fall. The problem with fear is it eventually becomes all-encompassing, and it shuts down the portion of the brain that controls logic and reasoning. At that point, it becomes dangerous, and it creates a hostile environment for our citizens of Islamic faith. I can tell when logic and reasoning has been shut down based on the things that people post. Human nature leads people to believe that which reinforces their stereotypes and fears. A great portion of what the media sells is not done for good intentions, and they count on people not checking them out. We've allowed the media to get us into wars and allowed them to divide us to a point not seen since the Civil War. We face a threat from within that carries the potential of tearing our nation apart. We have allowed ourselves to be divided into subgroups. Too many people are identifying as Democrats, Republicans, liberals, and conservatives, when we should be united as Americans. We have allowed ourselves to vote against our own interest, based on the fear of words and ideologies, and it's weakening our nation. Big scary words like democratic socialism, communism, and all the other isms presented by the media. We have been a democratic socialist republic since President Woodrow Wilson allowed the introduction of the Federal Reserve in 1913. Democratic socialism allows for our infrastructure, education system, and the systems in place that help the less fortunate. There are people who run around claiming to be great patriots, screaming about it's all about being we the people, when their minds carry an us versus them mentality. They're bitter and terrified that the government's trying to infringe on their First and Second Amendment rights. Nobody's infringing on your rights, but many of you are infringing on the rights of others. The First Amendment states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. It's pretty simple, but some people just don't get it. Hate speech is not protected under the First Amendment once it gets to the point of causing immediate violence. It covers all religions, point blank, period. Hate speech outside the law is speech that attacks a person or a group on the basis of attributes such as gender, ethnic origin, religion, race, disability, or sexual orientation. The late Associate Justice Antonin Scalia, writing for the Supreme Court, held the prohibition against hate speech was unconstitutional as it contravened the First Amendment. The Supreme Court struck down the order. Scalia explicated the fighting words exception as follows. The reason why fighting words are categorically excluded from the protection of the First Amendment is not that their content communicates any particular idea, but that the content embodies a particularly intolerable and socially unnecessary mode of expressing whatever idea the speaker wishes to convey. Because the hate speech ordinance was not concerned with the mode of expression, but with the content of expression, it was a violation of free speech. Thus, the Supreme Court embraced the idea that hate speech is permissible unless it will lead to imminent hate violence. Not in my words, but the words of the SCOTUS. When you let it get to that point, you are giving your rights away. The level of hate crimes against Muslim Americans has escalated since the false flag of 9/11, and that is unacceptable. The Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There are citizens who are terrified of the government infringing on their right to bear arms. The government is not infringing upon those rights, but that's the story they're always pushing. The government is pushing for background checks to exclude individuals with serious mental defects from getting weapons. If you're a law-abiding citizen, you don't need to worry. I have mental health issues that are combat related, but they haven't threatened my weapons because I don't present myself in a way that gives them cause to do so. Be responsible and secure your weapons so that they don't fall into the wrong hands. I know some people are saying that's enough, Troy. Shut up. I'll shut up when I put this knowledge out there. Die, or people get a dose of act right and stop infringing on the constitutional rights of others. I'm more likely to see the former occur than the latter. I have friends from all over the world, and there are those who view our nation as a schoolyard bully, incapable of handling our problems with anything other than our fist/military might, filled with warmongering citizens, and they see many of us as a pack of wild dogs pissing on everything to mark our territory. This concerns me deeply. The nation that I am seeing as represented by the loud minority is not the nation that many of our great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, uncles, aunts, brothers, sisters, and children envisioned when we fought. People need to realize, whether they realize it or not, they hold sway over the minds of the young. You are teachers and mentors who they look to for guidance. It is our responsibility to be great teachers and instill love and unity in the hearts and minds of our children for a better future. We cannot continue to ostracize others and threaten with violence based on our differences. Our differences are what make us America. We are a strong nation, but our greatest threat comes from within and the way we are presenting ourselves to the world. We have tried war time and again, and it's not worth it if it's not based on an immediate threat to our homeland. You cannot recoup the cost of war. The second that the first person falls, the cost has become too much. From the eyes of those who have lost their loved ones, their value was priceless. Remember, the president only has the level of power that the Congress allows. If it's broken, it's the fault of the Congress. Don't let them or your fear lead us into war again. We tried war too often. Let's try diplomacy.